Aye, from the cliffs of Moher.
Mohair, I believe. Hey, Gibby right there, a little Irish dance.
Yeah.
Let's get Ira from Ireland to join us on the hotline. Ira Schofield covers FSU for many moons. How many years now, Ira?
22 years.
Ooh.
22 years.
It's impressive.
My guy right there. So you have ridden the highs and lows of FSU football. Going back 22 years, there have been, actually a substantial amount of both. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sure for you and the program, it feels a lot better to be where you are now, coming off of these, the last half of 22 and then last season, although it ended obviously with disappointment from a selection standpoint. And now going into this year with top 10 and playoff, hope seeming, pretty real. So just the overall tenor, and then we'll get into this week's game.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a weird spot right now because you would think coming off of last season that it would be, enthusiasm at an all-time high. But, obviously the fan base was so just disappointed and disillusioned by that process that left them out of the playoff. And then, obviously we kind of knew what was going to happen when they played Georgia without half their team, all their best players. And so that was – but then you had to go through the embarrassment of it. Mm-hmm. And now, Mike Norvell has rebuilt the team, and I think it's a very talented team. I think it's a very athletic team. I think from a physical standpoint, they're not going to be much different than they were a year ago. But at the same time, I think it's a little challenging for Florida State fans to get super optimistic because, you do know you have a new quarterback who doesn't have a great history in his previous stops, and you do have to replace all those players. And so I think there's normally coming off a 13-0 type season, the fans would be sky high right now. But I think right now they're still in a little bit more wait and see.
And I'm curious as to your thought about that. Like, we know FSU is, and Norvell's done a great job, and they had an unbelievable year last year. So as we head into this year, and we know FSU's, quote, back, but are they at the point where he can just reload? Or are there going to be some stumbles along the way? Like, big picture here for you, just your best guess when you've watched this team day in and day out. I think when I look at the names on defense, I go, there's some players out there. I think their defense can carry them while their offense gets going. But I'm just curious. You see them more than I do, obviously. What do you think?
I think that's exactly what I would encourage Florida State fans when I talk to them to expect it to be. I think the defense should be very, very good. I think, and we get to watch a lot of practices, and I think they are very, very good. I think even though they lost several players to the NFL, I still think this defense, they reloaded at a really high level. And I think the offense, the running game will be solid. I think the passing game is going to be a little bit more of a work in progress. And I guess that's kind of what when I look at this season, last year Florida State was unbelievable. They were unbelievable in the first half of the season offensively. Then they kind of had some injuries and some things go wrong, and the offense was not as good as the second half of the season. Well, I think this could be different. It's the opposite. I think this offense may take a little while to get going, but there's a ton of talent. These receivers they brought in, they brought in receivers from Alabama and LSU. They brought in offensive linemen from Alabama and Florida, Auburn kid from last year that came in from Auburn. They brought in running back from Alabama. They brought in, just a lot of talented players. Mm-hmm. But I think it may take a little while to to mesh on offense. But yeah, I think the program, Mike Norvell, I think he's got it pretty mapped out. I know a lot of people wonder if the transfer portal is sustainable. I think it really could be.
The way he does it seems like it is. Yeah.
We know plenty about DJU, but that's just part of the incredible offensive turnover at the skill position. Now we know the line, and that's important. Has some returners, but you're losing three receivers, you're losing a couple running backs. The quarterback. So give us some names, and I know there's a couple from the transfer portal. So maybe not us, but our listeners, some names that you would expect to flash offensively to replace, the Keon Coleman's and Trey Benson's and Johnny Wilson's of the world.
Yeah, I think it's a good mixture of returning players and also those portal additions. And I think, wide receiver, the best wide receiver they have, in my opinion, and it's not really close, is Malik Benson, who transferred in from Alabama. And he's not a household name because he was at Alabama last year, and I think he was basically their number 3 receiver. And they were not a great throwing football team. They had a good offense, but it was not a great throwing football team. And I think he got a little lost in the shuffle. But 2 years ago, coming out of junior college, he was the number one junior college prospect in the country. Everybody wanted him. So I think he's got a guy. If you look at Johnny Wilson, was not highly acclaimed when he came to Florida State out of the transfer portal. Mike Norvell kind of gave him the opportunity, put him in positions to thrive, and we saw him do that. And I think Malik Benson's going to be similar. He's not 6'7", he's only 6'1", but he can really run and make tough catches. I have no doubt he's going to be the star of the passing game at wide receiver. They have a really good tight end who was like the number 2 tight end last year, Morlock. Morlock is he's like a 6'6" tight end, Kyle Morlock, and he transferred in from a Division II school last year. Had a good season, 20-something catches. I think this year you're going to see him become a much bigger part of the offense in the passing game. And then at running back, they bring back Lawrence Toafili, who I think has been outstanding, both running and catching the football. And then they brought in a running back from Alabama, Roy Dell Williams, who's kind of more of a power back. And then they've got an assortment of other guys. They brought in a speedster from Indiana, Jalen Lucas, who is a small dude, maybe 5'5", 5'6", but he can fly. So you're going to see, I think, just different names. I don't think it's going to be like last year where you had, there's Keon, there's Johnny, there's Trey Benson in the backfield, and that's the offense. This year it's going to be a lot more of more spread out.
When you start looking at Georgia Tech, everybody, they weren't bad last year, right? I mean, so what's the kind of thought process on the FSU side as they get ready for Georgia Tech? It kind of seems like it's a be careful game. Obviously, in the betting world, a lot of money being placed on Georgia Tech. The lines come down a little bit. Their quarterback has experience with that program, so it'll be an interesting game, I think.
Yeah, I think it is. I think when the game was announced, a year ago, over a year ago, I don't think it was seen as this compelling. But Georgia Tech, like you said, they Brent Key, their new head coach, has kind of found an identity. They midway through last season, they really turned it around, started running the ball well. Haynes King, their quarterback, is really athletic and can be a handful. They've got, they don't have quite as many weapons on offense, but the ones they have are good. They're really good with a 1,000-yard rusher and a couple of really good receivers. And so I think, to me, that's the big matchup is when Georgia Tech's on offense, can they move the ball at will and make this kind of put pressure on Florida State's offense, or can Florida State's defense, which should be the strength of this team, keep them under wraps and then give the Florida State offense time to get going? To me, the scenario, if you're a Florida State fan, you do not want to see is Georgia Tech having success on offense, and now you've got to match scores with your offense. Even though Georgia Tech's defense is not very good, was terrible last year, I still don't think that that's what you want to be. You want to be in a position where your defense is controlling the game, right, and then your offense can kind of find its way through it. And I think Florida State can do that. I think they're going to be better on the line of scrimmage. But if Georgia Tech, their offense is very good. If they hit some big plays, that would make for a challenging day for Florida State.
Give us your view of Yugi Alalale as he's gone through this fall, because, you went back to spring. I think I did pretty good actually getting it right after I stumbled so much off the get-go there. But from what he did in the spring, which, at least sitting over here, you get reports of, kind of hit or miss, and to how he's evolved through and what you expect to see out of him, both against Georgia Tech and then as this season unfolds. I've said this, and it's probably way oversimplified. To me, it's all about him. We learned last year that as good as those guys were, you kind of were left with the impression that it was all about Jordan Travis. And so I can't help but think, especially replacing all that NFL talent, that it's not any success or lack of that comes this year is going to have an awful lot to do with the quarterback, even maybe more than normal.
A lot of people say that, and I would disagree. I think Florida State needs that to not be the case. Because DJ's been fine. He makes some throws that you're like, take your breath away. He's got a huge arm and can make some really nice touch passes and can really stretch the field, do some really amazing things. Where he struggles sometimes is just consistency and missing the easy throws. Like he'll miss a layup and then make, like a guy in basketball who'll miss the easy shot but make the tough shot. And so sometimes that's what I think he's fighting. But to me, I really think the recipe for this team is defense, running game, special teams. Mm-hmm. And then DJ takes some shots and makes some big plays. If you look at his numbers last year at Colorado State, that's kind of what they did. They ran the ball a lot, and his pass yardage per pass attempt and yardage per completion were very high because they established the running game. And I think Mike Norvell is going to want to do the same thing. So I don't think if they need him to go out and throw the ball 35 times to win games, I don't think it's going to be a very good season for Florida State. I think they're going to need him to be more in the 20 to 25 range, and then he can also run the ball. And they've just got a lot of different weapons. If it's a DJ or a bust season, I think that would be not good for Florida State.
Couple more things with Ira Schofield. He's over there in Ireland for the game. Off the field stuff, Ira. What are your expectations about this fan base who's made the trek, and Herbie, who will be over there as well? What are we gonna see at game day? Now the students won't. Not that many students will be there, I don't suspect. So I think it'll be okay. But is there any concern?
I certainly hope that they do a good job of just cordoning him off and having the security and not that I think he's going to be in harm's way,
right?
But yeah, man, Florida State fans are furious because the videos that were out there of him questioning Florida State's resume even before Jordan Travis got hurt, that looks so bad now. After they ended up getting snubbed and they campaigned and they had Greg Sankey come onto the game day set that whole morning and campaign for the SEC and for the SEC to get two teams in, and even if they weren't undefeated teams, and how it's a different league and all of that. Well, they look at Kirk Herbstreit and to some degree Chris Fowler and that whole crew as being complicit in that.
Yes.
And so, yeah, there's a lot of anger and frustration. And literally, I swear to God, the first thing I heard when I started walking through downtown Galway, when I first got here, the first night we went to dinner, and I heard two guys talking, FSU fans, and one guy said something about Herbstreit, and the other guy yelled, blank Herbstreit.
Yeah.
Like literally.
He's definitely has become the lightning rod target. It's all his fault when really they ought to be mad at that damn committee. Yeah. That's who every fan shouldn't be mad at anybody else that commented. None of that stuff mattered.
Well,
and I hear you, but I think the feeling is that they help set the narrative.
Yeah, I guess. I'm not believing that, but anyway.
And tell me about give me a couple sites that you've seen that you've enjoyed the most. I know you're over there. I've seen some pictures of you on Twitter, and tell me a little bit about what you've enjoyed in Ireland.
And have you been overseas before?
Yeah.
We actually came over here one time last year. A few of us came over for a trip. But I've seen some stuff that we haven't seen before. And it's funny because, some of it is, you're just in a different country, so it looks so much more beautiful. You can live in Jacksonville and go to the beach every day and take it for granted. But you go to California and you see their beach. Look at this beach. Yeah. And, and I think it's so some of that, when you drive the countryside, it looks beautiful. It really is. And that's, it kind of takes your breath away. And then I realized, you know what? There's plenty of pretty locations in Florida and Georgia too, but it's in a new place. But no, some of the breathtaking things were, the cliffs. We went over to the cliffs of Moher, which is, it's incredible. It's probably 200, 300 feet high. Just gorgeous. And then, right on the ocean. And then, we've been to some of these old castles that are 400, 500, 600 years old.
Right.
It's a neat trip. I think it's been great. I think I was told that there's going to be over 20 or 25,000 Americans that make the trip to go to the game, and the crowd's expected to be about 47 to 48,000. So half the crowd is going to be people that came over from America, and it's a great trip. I like that they do these games. I know that obviously the NFL does it, London, and those are really successful too, and it's just cool to be a part of it.
Well, I would suggest that Kirk Herbstreit stay far away from those cliffs of Moher. That's just give him that advice for me.
Thank you, Ira.
Appreciate it, Ira. Hey, Ira, give us a score. What do you think? How's week one? You don't have to be specific with the score, but I got a touchdown, a couple of touchdowns, a field goal. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really good game for at least into early in the second half. I think Florida State eventually pulls away. I think their depth of talent will wear Georgia Tech down. So I think I've got Florida State winning by a couple scores. I think they'll cover, but it may not feel great for most of the process. I think it's going to be a good game, but I think Florida State will pull away in the end.
There you go, you degenerates. You heard the magic word, cover.
Inside info. Ira says they cover. Thank you, Ira.
Thank you, Ira.
Take care, guys.
I appreciate you.
There's your FSU Georgia Tech preview. Ira Schofield, warchant.com for.
Hey guys, Taylor Dahl here. Thanks so much for checking out 1010XL Seminoles page. If you're looking for more college football content, you can head over to the Gators page, or if you want some professional football content, check out our 1010XL Jaguars page.